Hey folks, this is a follow-on from the video this week on overcoming depression and emotional well-being. So I'm just going to touch a bit now on what causes the brain to become dysfunctional, how to nourish the brain, and what hormones are essential for optimization of brain function. In terms of what causes the brain to become dysfunctional, unfortunately, today in the 21st century, there are many things, as I discovered when I was doing my research for the Science of Fat Loss book, which took over 10 years, by the way, to put that book together. There was an enormous amount of research that I put into it, and chapter 3 in that book I dedicate to brain health and brain nutrition. And as I said, there's unfortunately a number of factors which causes the most important organ in our brain for the decisions we make, how we feel, the things we say, how well driven we are. This 3-pound lump of grey matter in our heads is just a magnificent wonder that we should look after, but we are never taught how to look after it. Brain nutrition has always fascinated me for probably over 30 years, so I took a great interest in it. But the sad thing is, today in the 21st century, there's so many things which causes the brain to become dysfunctional, and that's prevalent in society. I mean, how many happy people do you see walking down the street? If you see someone smiling today, you think they got a mental health problem. Oh my God, that guy just smiled, or she just smiled. Something wrong with her. You just look around. There's just doom and gloom everywhere. And why is there so much suicide? Britain's one of the highest suicide rates in Europe. We're one of the highest self-harming countries in the world. That's not normal behavior. And it's a tragedy. And so I looked into this and what things were causing our brains to become this way. Yeah, and I know there's other things behind suicide and self-harm. I'm not naive. There's emotional things which will also drive things like that as well. But let's look at now what other things can cause this brain to become dysfunctional. Well, because the brain is the fattiest organ in the body, toxins unfortunately gravitate to the brain and can cause significant dysfunction in the brain. The toxins like lead, mercury, fluoride, I mean, they're major players for brain degeneration. You've got things like aspartame, the sweetener aspartame, which is a neurotoxin which overexcites neurons. But let's just let's look at also mobile phones. There's enormous research on the mobile phone. Mobile phones really have only been in sort of great use for the last 20 years. We're in an experimental age, folks. So, especially on that front. And from the research that I read, children are much more susceptible. There's no doubt if children are using mobile phones on a regular basis, there's a much greater likelihood, this isn't scaremongering because I'm not a scaremonger, much greater likelihood that they're going to have brain cancer. And the research shows this. And adults who are extensive users as well are certainly likely to get certain types of brain tumours than those who use it irregular. So of course we all use a mobile phone. I use it quite regular, but I actually never ever use it to my ear. I'll always put it on loudspeaker. And another tip as well, try not to carry the mobile phone on you. If you do, put it in your arse pocket, okay? There's actually been research that when you carry it near the breast or the ovaries or the testicles, that it can damage those organs as well, or the heart. So, if you're someone, a business person who carry it regular, put it in your arse pocket, So as I said, there's lots of research on mobile phone use, and you've only got to do some fishing on that online, and you'll see some strong evidence on the effects of mobile phone use. And the reason why you don't hear so much about it, because it's £1 billion industry. Look, where there's money, you can buy any research. You show me one research that says mobile phones cause brain cancer or brain tumors, etc. I'll show you another 5 which has been bought and paid for, which will say no, it doesn't. Okay, so we live in a cynical world, unfortunately. So that's the way that you got to come to your own conclusion. On the heavy metals front, there's undoubtedly the most devastating thing for the brain on a heavy metal front is mercury. Mercury is absolutely catastrophic for the brain. The University of Calgary showed this, and you can watch the video on YouTube. Put University of Calgary and mercury. It was the only substance that could actually kill brains, that was killing the brain neurons, causing the brain neurons to go into degeneration. And, where do we get mercury from? Primarily, unfortunately, for those of us who who were in that generation where they used to put amalgam fillings in your mouth for fun. I mean, I had a face full of them, and it absolutely devastated my health, and that's why I become so well read on mercury and mercury detoxification. That's why I developed my supplement company. I started developing products to help myself get rid of the mercury. So the mercury, we know, causes brain degeneration, okay, and unfortunately as well, it causes a lot of other factors, which I cover in great depth in the Science of Fat Loss book. The other thing it does, it displaces hemoglobin on the red blood cells, which causes deoxygenation, and that is not good. It's not good for the brain, and it's not good for any other cell in the body. So, and the other unfortunate substance as well, which causes an effect on the brain, is fluoride. Something that I've done for many years now, I always use fluoride-free dental products and mouthwashes, etc. And I've always used, for the last number of years, a reverse osmosis water machine, which takes all the chloride out of the water. And if you're in one of the areas which is fluoridated, it'll take the fluoride out as well. And the ironic thing is, and again, I cover the research in the book on this, the higher the fluoridated areas that people live in, they find lower IQ in children. And also, what's also ironic here is also the higher the fluoridated area, they find more fluorosis, more sort of destruction of the teeth. So it's just nonsense, So try to protect yourself from mercury, and try to protect yourself from fluoride, and be very, very sensible with the mobile phone. Okay, that's crucial. There's other factors which affect the brain, but that's enough to kick things off. From a nourishment point of view, as I said, cholesterol is absolutely essential for brain function. So for those of you who are on statin drugs or very low-fat diets or obsessed with lowering cholesterol, it's unfortunate because we need high amounts of cholesterol. The brain is 25% cholesterol. It allows the neurons in the brain to communicate with each other far more efficiently through the synaptic clefts. It's found in great abundance in the clefts, along with DHA. And DHA is the docosahexaenoic acid, which you'll find in fish oil. And so cholesterol and DHA can have a huge impact on nourishing our brains, increasing our ability to learn, to concentrate, to function better, to feel better, because they also increase our neurotransmitters, things like serotonin and dopamine and acetylcholine. These are essential neurotransmitters for feeling happier, having better concentrations, and making better decisions, and isn't that great? So nourish the brain, use a very, very high quality fish oil. And it's very rare you'll hear me pushing any of my products because I'm the worst salesman in the world. But I have absolutely developed what I believe is the best fish oil, one of the best, if not the best fish oil in the world. Okay, so it's my ultimate fish oil liquid. If you go onto my website, click on the shop, look at the ingredients. If you know anything about nutrition, you'll get it. If you don't, go and buy some cheap shit, okay? And then from a hormonal perspective, then, the big players here are testosterone, thyroid, estrogen, and progesterone. They have, again, an incredible impact. And so many people today are suffering from depression because of low hormones, a brain which is malnourished, which is very low in omega-3 fats and very high in omega-6 fats, which causes chronic inflammation. Let me just flip back to the omega-3, omega-6 fats again, because there's a bit more I'd like to say. We were meant to eat around maybe 2 omega-6s to 1 omega-3s. That's kind of how we evolved. It would have been different times for different seasons, no doubt. But what happens is, and they've done studies on this with prisoners, the higher the omega-6 intake was, the more aggressive and the more violent the prisoner was. And the higher the omega-3 intake, the more calm and the happier the prisoner was. But the problem that we have today in our society, we eat around 30 times more omega-6s than omega-3s. And where do you get your omega-6s from? Yes, you'll get them from meat and you'll get them from dairy, but the biggest culprits, the highest sources, are the vegetable oils. Well, they're not vegetable oils. Sunflower is not a vegetable oil. Safflower is not a vegetable. Soy is not a vegetable. They call them vegetable oils because they want to think that it's a healthy oil. I can tell you now, they shit oils. That's what they should be called. You know, stay away from the vegetables. If you're going to cook your food, use full fat butter, use coconut oil, or use extra virgin olive oil, okay, at low temperatures. But stay away from the so-called vegetable oils and the margarines, okay? The margarines are absolutely, you know, it's not food. It's not edible for human consumption. Go for the full fat butter. You know, go for everything full fat. We need the fats. Our brain needs the fat, and our cells need the fats. So don't fall into the low fat crap, okay? You know, so anyway, little rant there. I don't often rant anymore. Okay, back to the hormones, you know, testosterone. Let's look at that first. So I've done a multitude of blood chemistry analysis this week, for example, and I haven't had anyone with optimum levels of testosterone. We're living in a chronically testosterone deficient society. And what does testosterone do for brain function? It's our drive, it's our get up and go. We want to take things on, we're assertive, we make decisions. You have someone with low testosterone, my God, you know, you can throw a cotton wool budder out and they collapse. They can't cope with stress. You know, so keeping testosterone for male and female from an emotional, from a brain function is absolutely essential. And this week, as I said, I mean, I'm talking chronically low testosterone levels. These people will crumble at the slightest bit of stress. So find out what your testosterone levels are and get them back up. And the quickest way to do that, first of all, is to de-stress, okay? Because if you know anything about the steroid pathways, the more stress in our lives, the more pregnenolone goes down to the cortisol pathway and down instead of to the testosterone pathway. I'll kind of explain all that in the Science of Fat Loss book, so don't get too lost there. But you have the more stress, the less testosterone, and the more cortisol, okay? And, you know, so that's essential. And from a dietary perspective, saturated fat and monounsaturated fat increase testosterone levels. Polyunsaturated fats decrease testosterone levels. Okay, so you want a high-fat diet, okay? So again, what's polyunsaturated fats? Your vegetable oils and your fish oils. But we consume so little fish oil, and the fish oil is so crucial to brain function, but you don't need to take a huge amount of fish oil, okay? Like some proponents propose. And then sunshine. Vitamin D, sunshine, is crucial. We know that increases testosterone production, and that's why when you're on a nice summer holiday, you're as only as a dog with two dicks. Why? You've de-stressed and you've got sunshine, which increases testosterone, and you start hunting lampposts. Okay, so testosterone is crucial. And then thyroid hormone. Oh my God, you know, the effect the thyroid has on the brain, it is absolutely essential. The brain has more thyroid receptors than any other organ in the body. It's that crucial for brain function. You know, so somebody who's struggling with hypothyroid, low thyroid, is always going to be depressed. I haven't met anyone with hypothyroidism that comes in and high-fives you and gives you a hug. You know, they normally just, you know, they're anxious, they're agitated, they're irritable. And it's not because of their personality, it's a hormonal problem. And most of the time, unfortunately, they'll get prescribed an antidepressant. But it's not that they got an antidepressant deficiency. They've normally got a thyroid deficiency, or it could be a testosterone deficiency. It could be both. So thyroid hormone, knowing your levels of thyroid is also essential for making sure the brain is in a functional state. And then the other two big players then is the progesterone and estrogen. Progesterone, you know, males and females produce this as well, okay? So if you're a male thing, well, that's not for me, but we do produce estrogen and we do produce progesterone. Progesterone is much more of a calmer for the brain, and estrogen is a bit more of a stimulator. So for females, you know, late at night whose brains are racing, there could be a good reason for that. You could be estrogen dominant, or for the progesterone, and you could have low progesterone levels. So again, finding out these ratios. So, you know, so progesterone calms the brain and estrogen excites the brain. So finding out your ratios, and again, I do the blood chemistry analysis. I'm finding virtually every female that I'm doing actually with low estrogen, but virtually very, very little progesterone. So they still estrogen dominant. You know, so if you've got a female that's got, you know, who's estrogen dominant, who's got low thyroid, and this is a common pattern, and they got low testosterone, you've got somebody that is a very, very agitated, angry, sort of hostile person. And as I said, it's nothing to do with a personality. It's a brain chemistry problem. It's a hormonal problem. So that's why I encourage you, to find out what your levels are so you know what to address, So I hope this little video kind of helped you along your way. If you want any further details, I've written 3 blogs on my website on this, in fact 4 blogs, sorry, and I've written a comprehensive chapter in the Science of Fat Loss book. So thanks for your time, folks.